Tom Cruise. Stan takes a free Scientology personality test and scores unusually high. The church concludes he is the reincarnation of L. Ron Hubbard, and word spreads to Scientologists worldwide. Tom Cruise shows up at the Marsh House wanting to meet Stan personally. He pulls Stan aside and asks him what he thinks of his acting. Stan tells him honestly that he is decent, but not as good as other actors. Cruise has an immediate breakdown and locks himself inside Stan's closet, refusing to come out. The rest of the episode is built around Tom Cruise refusing to come out of the closet. John Travolta is brought in to talk him out and also ends up inside. R. Kelly then arrives and joins them. Nicole Kidman shows up and asks him to leave. Nothing works. Various people attempt to convince him throughout the episode, and each one fails. Meanwhile, the Scientology president pulls Stan aside and reveals the church's secret doctrine, the Xenu story, which the show presents on screen with a note stating that this is what Scientologists actually believe. Stan eventually tells the gathered Scientologists that the whole religion is a scam built to take money from people. Cruise and the others finally come out, at which point Cruise threatens to sue Stan in England. The credits roll with every single name listed as either John Smith or Jane Smith, directly referencing the Church of Scientology's well-known history of filing lawsuits against critics. Kanye West. Jimmy comes up with a joke while Cartman is at his house. The joke asks if someone likes fish sticks and if they like putting fish sticks in their mouth, then calls them a gay fish. The punchline works because fish sticks sounds like fish dicks. The joke spreads through South Park and then goes nationwide almost immediately. Everyone understands it except Kanye West. Kanye becomes increasingly convinced that people are literally calling him a gay fish and that there is no joke involved. He assembles diagrams on a whiteboard trying to decode the logic of why it is funny. He visits a doctor to confirm he has no gills. He tracks down comedian Carlos Mencia after Mencia takes public credit for the joke on a talk show and has him killed. None of this resolves anything because people keep telling him the joke everywhere he goes. Eventually, Kanye works through his own reasoning and concludes that the only explanation is that he must actually be a gay fish. He accepts this fully, and the episode ends with him in a wetsuit walking off a pier into the ocean. A full music video plays showing him swimming through the ocean surrounded by fish. In real life, Kanye addressed the episode publicly, said it hurt his feelings, and referenced it in multiple songs over the following years. Paris Hilton. In Season 8, Episode 12, Paris Hilton arrives in South Park to open a store at the mall called Stupid Spoiled Whore. The store is aimed entirely at young girls and sells clothing, accessories, and a video playset kit. On her way out of the store, her pet chihuahua finds the limo driver's gun and shoots herself. The episode establishes this as a recurring pattern, as her pets regularly find ways to end their lives. All the girls at school immediately begin emulating Hilton's persona, changing how they dress and act. Wendy is the only one who refuses to participate and gets excluded from the group as a result. Wendy's father tries to intervene at the store, but gets manipulated into supporting it within minutes. Meanwhile, Hilton spots Butters on the street and decides she wants him as a personal pet. She offers his parents increasing amounts of money, eventually reaching $250 million. His parents turn it down. Wendy goes to Mr. Slave for advice on how to push back against Hilton's influence on the town. Hilton finds out and challenges Mr. Slave to a public competition on stage in front of the whole town to settle the matter. The competition escalates through increasingly extreme acts. Mr. Slave ends it by physically absorbing Hilton entirely inside himself. She disappears completely. The girls agree with Wendy and abandon the Hilton persona. Michael Jackson. In Season 8, Episode 6, a new kid named Blanket moves to South Park. His father goes by Mr. Jefferson and is clearly meant to be Michael Jackson, though the show never uses his real name. The house is filled with arcade games, carnival rides, and a full amusement park in the backyard. Mr. Jefferson immediately gravitates toward playing with the boys rather than spending any time with his own son. Kyle begins to notice that Blanket is being left alone constantly while Mr. Jefferson plays games and hosts sleepovers with the other kids. Blanket tells Kyle he is a test tube baby, has never known his mother, and has siblings who live elsewhere. Kyle ends up being the one to treat Blanket's injuries and look after him while his own father is occupied elsewhere. At one point, Mr. Jefferson shows up at Stan's window at night dressed as Peter Pan and climbs inside wanting to play, with Cartman following behind him. As the episode progresses, Mr. Jefferson's plastic surgery begins physically deteriorating on screen, and he dangles Blanket out of a second-story window for entertainment, directly referencing a real incident from Michael Jackson's life. Kyle confronts him and tells him directly that he is trying to live out a childhood rather than raise one. Mr. Jefferson accepts this and reconnects with his son, Radiohead. In Season 5, Episode 4, Cartman's revenge plan against Scott Tenorman involves multiple steps, the final one being the arrival of Radiohead at the chili cook-off. Cartman sent them a fan letter earlier in the episode involving inviting them to South Park. They show up not knowing anything about the situation and having come simply because a fan reached out to them. Their arrival is timed to coincide with the moment Scott Tenorman discovers what is in his bowl of chili. Cartman had Scott's parents killed by a farmer, ground their bodies into chili, and served it to Scott at the cook-off. Scott finds his mother's finger with her ring still on it inside the bowl. He realizes what he has eaten and breaks down completely in front of the entire crowd. Radiohead walks up behind Scott at that exact moment, sees him sobbing on the ground, and mocks him for crying before walking away. They had no idea what had just happened and had no involvement in any part of Cartman's plan. Cartman had arranged their presence specifically so that Scott would be humiliated by his favorite band at his lowest possible moment. It is the final and most calculated piece of the entire scheme. Biggie Smalls. In Season 10, Episode 11, the episode takes place around Halloween. The Devil is planning a huge members-only costume party at the W Hotel in Los Angeles and has invited celebrities and historical figures from hell to attend. Back in South Park, the boys are gathered around a mirror with candles lit, trying out the Bloody Mary ritual where you say a name 3 times into a mirror. They say Biggie Smalls 3 times, and Butters actually manages to summon him. Biggie appears and is immediately furious. He is a resident of hell and had been planning to go to Satan's party in Los Angeles, but being summoned by Butters means he is now stuck in South Park and at risk of missing the whole thing. He pulls a gun on Butters and tells him that if he does not get him to Los Angeles in time, there will be consequences. Butters agrees, and the two of them board a plane to LA together. Mid-flight, the other boys back in South Park say his name into a mirror again out of curiosity, which yanks Biggie off the plane against his will and teleports him right back to South Park. He is furious. The boys scramble to get him back to the airport as fast as possible. Just as he boards another flight, Randy Marsh gets told about the ritual by Stan and tries it himself in his bathroom, summoning Biggie a 3rd time. Every summoning pulls him further from Los Angeles, and he gets more and more frustrated each time it happens. Biggie eventually makes it to Los Angeles after the chain of summonings finally stops. By the time he gets there, Satan has already dealt with a separate situation at the party and opened the doors to everyone. Butters, who had made his way to Los Angeles during all the chaos, uses a makeup mirror at the party to summon Biggie one final time directly into the venue. Biggie arrives, sees he is finally there, and invites Butters inside with him as a thank you for all the help. The episode ends with everyone at the party dancing together. Jennifer Lopez. In Season 7, Episode 5, during a Cultural Diversity Day presentation at school, Cartman draws a face on his hand and performs a ventriloquist act as a character he calls Jennifer Lopez. The hand speaks in an exaggerated accent and discusses tacos and burritos. The Latino judges on the panel give Cartman first place. Kyle insists it is a prank. The hand then begins operating on its own. At the mall, it convinces Cartman to use a gift certificate to record a music video, which ends up circulating to the real Jennifer Lopez's record label. The label decides to drop the real Jennifer Lopez and sign the hand puppet instead, determining it is easier to work with and that they cannot have 2 artists with the same name. The real Jennifer Lopez loses her deal and shows up in South Park furious. Ben Affleck meets the hand and begins a romantic relationship with it, eventually waking up in Cartman's bed. Cartman becomes sleep deprived as the hand keeps him up all night recording new material. Everyone eventually converges on a bridge. The hand then speaks in a completely different calm voice and identifies itself as Mitch Connor, a traveling con man who has drifted from town to town running schemes. It apologizes to Affleck, states it has taken a pill, and dies. The crowd disperses. Kyle asks Cartman who Mitch Connor is. Cartman gives no clear answer. The real Jennifer Lopez ends the episode working the counter at a taco restaurant after losing her entire career. Britney Spears. In Season 12, Episode 2, the boys see a news report about a paparazzi photographer who made a large sum of money from a single embarrassing photo of Britney Spears. They decide to get their own photo of her to sell. They bluff their way past hotel security by pretending to be her children. Britney believes her actual kids have come to visit her and is devastated when she realizes it was a setup. She locks herself in the bathroom and shoots herself in the head with a shotgun. She survives, but with most of her skull missing. The media covers the story anyway, focusing only on criticism of her appearance rather than her condition. Stan and Kyle feel responsible and decide to protect her from further media attention. They get her out of the hotel and attempt to keep her away from photographers. Her manager pulls her back into public appearances regardless of her condition, forcing her to perform and record. The harassment from the media and public continues despite her visible deterioration. Stan eventually puts her on a train heading north to escape everyone. The entire town is waiting at a stop along the route. Randy, the Broflovskis, and dozens of other South Park residents are gathered gathered on the platform. They explain to Stan and Kyle that this is how modern society handles its sacrifices. Instead of physically stoning a chosen person, they drive them to death through public attention and media coverage. The crowd closes in and photographs Britney until she collapses and dies. Months later, the town is celebrating a record corn harvest. A news broadcast announces that Miley Cyrus is gaining national popularity. The crowd goes quiet, then begins the same process again.